Huh? Oh, thanks, Bob. So with respect to the claims of privilege, if you do not attempt to invade that privilege, what you're likely to find is that there is important information hidden on there. Because if you think about it, other than saying it's not relevant, other than saying it's too burdensome, and that the court's going to be able to easily ascertain that, and that information, all of it, should be ascertained in open court. If we're going to invade a claim of privilege, oftentimes it is not going to be in open court. It will likely be an in-camera examination where only the court will be looking at the log and the documents and deciding whether you're right and that we can go further and try to get access to that information. So I can't stress enough that when we talk about work in civil cases, the work comes in the discovery process, and you've got to be tireless about and diligent about making sure that you've looked through everything carefully, that you've figured out where all this information is, and you've really taken pains to depose everyone and subpoena everyone that might have that information. And oftentimes you'll be amazed if there are two parties that potentially have the information, you can't rest on one because the other one, and this is ideal from your standpoint, is the other one has information in addition to what the first one had, not uncommon at all. What that means is either someone's cheating or someone's destroyed information. And in Massachusetts, spoliation of evidence, even the negligent destruction of evidence, doesn't have to be intentional, raises the presumption that the evidence that they would have had, that they should have had, would be harmful to the side that didn't produce the information or that's destroyed the information. So discovery becomes the way in which we win our civil cases. And you need to really think and look carefully at the rules if you're going to do litigation, because there's a lot of abuses, not beyond Rule 26 and 27, but there's abuses with respect to each one of them. I've seen people conduct depositions in an abusive fashion, or asking questions that clearly are inappropriate and the like, but designed to harass. It goes on for days and days. The rules themselves spell remedies for that. There's one other rule I want to just talk about quickly, and that's Rule 27, depositions to perpetuate testimony. And again, I think it's an unusual rule, but you should be aware of. It allows for depositions to be done in order to perpetuate testimony before filing suit. And it's unusual, but what you're trying to do is be careful that you have enough information consistent with Rule 11 to be able to go forward with your suit that you ultimately filed, but you may well be concerned that the witness might die in the interim, that the witness might for otherwise be unavailable by the time we actually get to depositions and the like during the course of that civil case. So Rule 27 allows you to be able to undertake a deposition in a separate action even before the main action is filed. And you don't see it often. We at times will need to do it, but you should take a look at that and understand that normally depositions take place after the civil action has been filed and after the voluntary disclosures of information, but there is an ability to take depositions in aid of filing suit, and that falls under Rule 27 as well.
Are you able to compel somebody to? Can you compel them to sit at the deposition if you've not filed suit?
Yeah, because by filing an action, you have to file an action to use Rule 27. But it is not. It is an action simply to obtain this discovery. Once I have an action filed, let me just make that point. Hold on. Let me just make that point clear. The parties have to comply with discovery requests. Okay, and that includes the deposition. And if you don't show up for your deposition, then I can request sanctions. But witnesses do not. And so when we have non-party witnesses that we need information from, either documentary or testimony, then we have to subpoena them under Rule 45. And if we do not subpoena them under Rule 45 and they don't show up, that's on you. because Rule 45 compels them to testify, to come and appear. And in the event they do not, we can ask the court to hold them in contempt because the subpoena is a court order. And so there are means of ensuring that witness's appearance. A lot of times, a lot of witnesses will appear without the necessary subpoena, but most people expect to receive the subpoena so that they understand when and where it is. But more importantly, they get a nominal fee for their appearance, plus you're required under Rule 45 to give them the travel allowance. And again, it's modest. But absent that, you have no obligation to appear. Even if I said I'd appear, people get cold feet at the last minute. And so, again, dotting your I's and crossing your T's, if you've scheduled a deposition and you've got the stenographer there and you've got the other side there, you better make sure that you've done whatever you can to make sure the witness appears, because otherwise, if I've blocked out the morning and now it's your fault the witness isn't here, well, who's going to pick up my costs this morning? And I can tell you, you're picking up the stenographer's costs just for even appearing. And it's also, if you think about it, it's a terrible waste of time when you had planned to go forward yourself. So a lot of times, even friendly witnesses, we might subpoena them so that they understand that they will comply one way or the other. That's a delicate thing with the friendly witness, because now if they feel they're being compelled, they may be a lot less friendly at the deposition. And so you got to play that cautiously. But certainly for trial, even friendly witnesses, I subpoena. Simply, again, because if something comes up and they're not there, I can explain to the court that I've done what I was supposed to do to make sure they're there, and now perhaps I can use their depositions as former testimony, or at least I have legitimately a basis to say we need a short continuance here because the witness didn't appear pursuant to the subpoena and the like. So yeah, Rule 27, you file an action. It's just not the main action in order to take that deposition. Once I have an action filed, all of the other rules come into play, and I can subpoena that person to testify.
Is that a complaint when you say action?
Yeah, it's a complaint.
Okay. And for, like, how...
It actually calls it a verified petition, but it's a complaint.
Okay. And the second thing, for non-party subpoenas, is that something that you secure from the court? You have to
go to a form.
How does it work?
In Massachusetts, at least, any notary public can issue a subpoena. So if you're in a law office, there's usually more than one notary there. I can issue subpoena. I think that I've always done it. I assume I can. I'm a notary, so even on my own cases, I can send the notice of deposition with my subpoena, with the subpoena filled in by me, notarized by me. No, maybe not, because I'm signing this. So, I have to think. I haven't looked at the form in a bit, so now I've got to think about it. I can't notarize, obviously, my own signature. Right. So. Yeah, no, there's other notaries here. I'm just trying to remember. Here I'd go, there's a couple of other notaries here that I would use, because I think that's, now that I think of it, I'm notarizing my own signature on the subpoena. I think, I've got to look at the form. But at any rate, there's a form, you can go online and grab the subpoena form in Massachusetts, and it's not like a summons where you have to pay the fee for it. It's a blank piece of paper. You fill it out. You then have to have it notarized, and you serve it on the witness with the appearance fee and a mileage fee, neither of which is much money. And that's what people say. I'm supposed to come here for $20. Rule's the rule. But that's what you get, and that's what you get is the witness fee, and the witness fee is not commensurate with what you're likely to be making on a regular basis.
Yeah, that gets it. When I did subpoenas or did depositions, it was for the party. You didn't subpoena the party. They have to show up, so you don't have that.
You don't have to subpoena the party because they have an obligation as a party to cooperate with discovery under the rules. Non-parties do not. The other advantage with respect to non-parties a lot of times, and why we do subpoena them for the deposition as well, is we want them to bring stuff with them. And so since you can't force them to produce information under Rule 34, what I can do with the subpoena and a notice of deposition is I can require you to attend and to bring various documents and things with you to that deposition. Problem is, so now they bring your stuff, and I've got to conduct the deposition and look at what they've brought. So you don't have as much time for prep, but this is the only way I have access to it unless they've agreed to turn it over ahead of time. We get, for instance, I'll give you an example. We get subpoenas a lot for your records here. You're in a car accident, you did this or you did that, and they want your records of attendance, or they want your school schedules or whatever. And so there, you actually have a privilege with respect to your student records as well. That's why they have to send a subpoena. It can't be just released. And the subpoena, in essence, is the court order that they want your records. And if you object, you have the right to go to court and say, no, this is privileged information. The problem is, the likelihood is, you have at least waived some of that privilege for whatever you're claiming and the like that they're seeking. Usually, but that's between you and them. Questions? Let's talk quickly about 209A, which is one of the first things on here for Section 10. And these really are still sort of dealing with various family law issues this week, as we looked at as we started last time with our surrogacy and the like. And 209A are restraining orders with respect to family or dating situations, where is one of the few types of restraining orders where you can file just for the restraining order and not file an action with it as well. Usually when we're talking about seeking a TRO, preliminary injunction, and a permanent injunction, there must be a complaint filed that alleges a legal injury, as well as seeking some form of equitable relief in the form of an injunction. A 209A is an abuse prevention order. And 209A in Massachusetts allows the person who feels that they are the victim of abuse to petition the court in order to get an order to prevent that other person from abusing them. Historically, we were talking about partners to a marriage. The statute over the years has been altered and amended so that now anyone with respect to a dating relationship or more has the right to petition the court for a 209A and even obtain it, and oftentimes will obtain it on an emergency basis, meaning without notice to the other side, and not virtually, at any time of day or night, and the police would assist you with that, as there's always an on-call judge as well. Shortly after the order is issued, it has to be renewed, and the court would have a more formal hearing with respect to, at that point, renewing it, and it can be renewed for a year or more, or up to, it can be reviewed at times. It can continuously be reviewed if the court determines those circumstances are still present. And the problem with it is that sometimes they're abused, and people are ousted out of their own apartments or homes for extended periods of time. And I've seen them sometimes used more for strategic reasons during the course of a divorce or other family law issue. And that's unfortunate, because obviously the order is designed to protect people who are in fear of their safety and potentially in an abusive situation. And if that order isn't issued, in a lot of cases, that's precisely what will happen. So it's an important statutory remedy for families to be able to use, or people in a significant dating relationship. But like any other statute, sometimes we see that it's not always used precisely as designed. And over the years, there's been situations where the court hasn't issued the order for reasons that the court would ultimately regret, because people are killed in the interim, and there are situations where the court issues an order based on what they believe is good cause, and the person nonetheless doesn't follow the court order, and we have the violence and the tragic results nonetheless. So it's an important statutory remedy you should be aware of. I don't know what the New Hampshire equivalent is. Does New Hampshire have I know they do, because we have a situation where we're trying to figure out sort of a jurisdictional problem between Mass and New Hampshire. I just don't remember what the statutory equivalent is in New Hampshire. but my recollection is surprisingly, New Hampshire's was broader in that it didn't limit it to a substantial dating relationship. It went even further than that as to sort of the stalking situation that was also covered under their statute. But by the way, you still have the right to get other restraining orders and the like. 209A is just reserved for these types of cases. Questions on 209A? Okay, so let's talk about Burke versus Revo, which is one of the first cases in your family law sequence, which I like. So, negligent birth of a child. We have wrongful death, and so now we have wrongful birth. Anyone think that this is just really bad public policy? You know, I had brothers and sisters, and they were quite cruel at times, you know. So I can imagine one of them saying, Mom and Dad didn't want you so much they sued when you were born. It's not, do you?
I thought it shocked me a little bit how far they went with the damages. And, yeah, I gotta admit, I was surprised how this one went.
Well, is it good public policy, bad public policy? I mean, the doctor should pay. No one ever feels any sympathy towards a doctor. They're all rich and well off, so who cares anyway, right?
Insurance, right?
Someone's got money somewhere along the road, so who cares? But do you? Because I was wondering. Anytime I look at the dissent, I always get a kick out of it because I was going to ask you too about this, and I can throw it out on the table now. O'Connor, Nolan, and Lynch, three good Irish Catholics. Nolan, I know, because we had a case with him one time. He's got 8 kids of his own. Justice Lynch used to be, before his death last year, was a trustee of the law school. Really nice guy. O'Connor as well. When I look at that, I wonder if their religious views, their religious upbringing sort of colors the dissent in there. Is that okay with you? Is it right? Is it wrong? Do your religious views, should the religious views potentially color their decision in the case? Or is it unrealistic to think that they don't?
Not if you're making wedding cakes.
Well, we'll leave the wedding cakes aside for now. I think I got to talk about that next week on BZ. So let's deal with this right now. What do you think? Go ahead.
Not everybody is whatever religion these guys are. So if they don't want to have a child, or the benefits aren't the same as what these guys are saying. Oh, that having a child is a great benefit to society, to us, and the benefits of having a child far outweigh non-benefits of not having one. But I just think their religious views shouldn't have anything to do with the law.
Their application of the law.
Yes.
But is that realistic? I'm just wondering. I mean, okay, we are who we are, aren't we? I throw the robe on, and all of a sudden I no longer went to 6 years of Catholic school. Is that what you're figuring? Because I still did. Got scars from all those nuns all those years, right? I mean, I know we'd like a more perfect separation. Do you think?
I agree with what you're saying, because judges, at the end of the day, they're only people, and they don't throw a robe on and become robots who are just unable to feel emotion and take into consideration that a child was born and now to parents who don't want them. So they're probably taking a hard approach, but it's what they know.
Well, it is what they know. No. So, I mean, what are you shaking your head for over there?
Don't speak. You told me to kick you.
It doesn't work. I tried. No, what are you shaking your head for?
Well, a lot of your religion is based on law, and so that they're
A lot of your law is based on religion,
yeah.
right?
That's true.
But it is true, isn't it?
Yes. Common law.
That's why we had all these blue laws for all these years, didn't we? I mean, you could argue that this number of statutes still are affected by our religious views. And how come the church, we're going to read that later in the semester, how come the church gets a free pass when it wants to do certain things that in other venues would absolutely be discriminatory and the like, but, well, as a church matter, we gotta step off here. So, is it unrealistic to think that these judges aren't influenced by their religious beliefs? Even if you might want it not to be? Well, let's just, okay, you're all a little wishy-washy, you don't want to dip your toe in. So let's try the bigger question that I asked you first. Should there really be a claim, should you really have the ability to file suit for the wrongful birth of a healthy child?
I think you should be able to file suit for the damages up to, but not including the rearing of the child.
I second that.
So wait a minute, say again?
You should be able to file suit against the doctor for negligence for not performing the surgery correctly, not giving you the information you need that there is a different type, but not up to and including rearing the child.
But I thought the rearing of the child is the big expense here that I need
But
help with.
I don't think that you should be able to be compensated
Why?
for that, because that's something that you can't, I don't think you can really quantify how much it costs.
Think that damages.
Well, wait a minute, though. We can, you
Well, I know,
can't,
but I mean, you can give a number, but I think that's above and beyond what you should be able to file for.
but why? Because, is it because of what the dissent says, that like
No,
my
I
mother
agree-
believed
I
a
agree
child
with
is a
the
gift
dissent.
from God?
No, I agree with the dissent.
No, is
that-
it?
Well, no, I'm not religious in that way, so, but I don't agree.
Well, it's a child a gift, forget strike the God part.
Yes,
No?
it is.
No, not a gift?
Not in this situation.
I'm on a little bit on the fence on that, but I'm on kind of the fence on that.
Well, we can fully understand that. No, but, so, if I've been damaged, then why are we gonna cut off my damages then? Go ahead.
And the damages, I think, are reasonably foreseeable or reasonably related to this procedure. If you
Going
do this
back.
procedure wrong, this is the reasonably foreseeable consequences of that. So it just sort of follows tort law. It's nothing that out of left field.
Well, because I want to make sure, see, to me, I thought I heard a little bit, well, they're really not measurable or quantifiable. To me, it's probably far easier to figure out what it's now going to cost to raise this kid than when we deal with the damages for a wrongful death of a child, right? If we talk about, if we're looking at speculation and the like, we can find tables that tell us, what the average cost to raise a child is. And I've heard the numbers before, and having had 3, it's a lot higher than the number I've heard. Price of sneakers and soccer camps and God knows what. This is not a small expense that these folks didn't want to absorb. So I think either you got to decide that we're going to give all the damages that are naturally flow from the breach, or we don't.
But they need to address something that's important here too, that the child can, at the latter end of its life, or latter end of your life, maybe producing benefits back to you. And are we going to quantify that? Are we going to all?
Well, don't we have to? I mean, if we're doing straight damages, it's what you were promised versus what you got. And so you're saying, well, we were promised no kids. Well, we got us a kid, and now we've got damages that flow from that. But there's offsetting credits, aren't there?
Right.
No, right?
Always.
Well, I had a puppy before common rule. Okay, he gives me a big smile. Your kids do things, don't they make a bad day better sometimes? I mean, there's got to be a credit for it. Don't know why do we have kids if they're only a negative?
Right.
There can be.
Huh?
Not all kids grow up to be great kids.
Oh, so we look at the end.
I'm just saying, like the same way we're looking at
What's your son saying?
Aiden.
He's a handsome little boy. isn't
Yes,
he?
it is.
He is. No, so does Aiden bring joy into your life?
Yes, now that I have control over him. That happened when
Even on his bad day, isn't he still an addition to your life?
Well, yes, of course.
So then you've been benefited as a result of his birth and his involvement in your life, and yours and his, right?
I have control over
Okay,
that.
so all we got to do is figure out what that's worth. What?
not like he got a vasectomy and then was like, all right, well, you know, I'm not expecting a kid, so he wanted a child. I'm
Agreed.
assuming.
Okay, so these people didn't.
Well, they couldn't afford it.
Exactly.
It was for economic purposes.
Okay, so does that, let me ask you that, does that make a difference why they don't have kids? Does it have to be for economic purposes?
Yeah, that's one for economic purposes.
Okay, so if you say, we just don't want to have a child because we're concerned, not about economic reasons, about genetic factors in our family and the risk of damage to the child, and you know what, I know it sounds cold, but we just couldn't raise a child that needed all of that. So, but wait a minute though, but then the child's born healthy.
Yeah, no damage.
No damages?
Beyond the pregnancy.
So wait a minute though, so you're telling me, because I'm a little concerned about the policy of this, so you're telling me that, quote, healthy kids are worth more than kids with issues?
No, it wouldn't.
Huh?
No.
No, you're not?
No.
Well, you don't want to say it that way, but that's what you just said,
So,
isn't
and
it?
you're limiting it to physical as opposed to mental.
No, why would you limit it to either?
Well, you don't know, like Andy said, now he's got control over his child, so when does,
How old is your child when you talk like that?
He's 4.
Okay, you're not thinking he's running around on crack and
what's normal?
stuff. Boosted liquor stores.
What's normal?
Well, okay, but that's part of what I'm asking, is there? Because, the court says, if it's for economic reasons, and you have a child,
Because the doctor.
you have damage, you have damages all the way, and we'll get to the damages in a minute. What if it's not for economic reasons? What if it's for, we're scared? We don't think, for various reasons, genetic issues, family issues, we can have a healthy child.
You didn't get the harm you expected.
Huh?
You didn't get the harm that.
So I've got a quote, healthy child. No damage? No case?
No, you have those initial damages, but not the child.
What initial damages?
The breach.
The cost
Medical
of the surgery.
expenses,
But I have to pay for the meds when you've got something that you didn't think you could get, and now you're pleased with what you've got?
And I think only the botched surgery would have to meet that.
What?
I think only the botched surgery, because the pregnancy expenses. would-
Oh, so when we're done, we go back in and get a sterilization on the house.
That's what I believe.
But that's it.
That's what I would argue.
What about the 9 months of being pregnant?
Wait, but you
didn't want to be
You
pregnant.
got it.
Well,
So I'm wondering what I'm wondering what you tell me they are, because I'm reading the case, and I know we've got some of it here, but, so they started from the economic standpoint. Is there a difference as to why? So you're gonna tell your client when they come in, you gotta say it was because you didn't want to have any more kids because of the money? Oh, you are? Chris is nodding his head over there. Yeah, all right. Well, the court
If you want that.
reasons it through that there's a difference, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what the difference was.
Well,
'cause I don't know-
didn't they say when parents decide for economic reasons they do not want to have a child, and they have this sterilization procedure that the doctor promised,
Yeah.
which you won't get that anymore, guaranteed
Guaranteed.
that there will be no more children, then they have a claim for wrongful birth, right? That's what they said. So I'm wondering how far you go with that. So suppose they say, no, it's not, it wasn't for economic reasons, it was for other reasons. We didn't think, we didn't think we could deal with the pregnancy, we didn't think we could deal with the child that might be anything other than perfect. Well, at least according to us right now, you got through the pregnancy and you've got a child, that's fine.
I don't think you'd get.
No claim.
I don't think so. I think, like you said, you don't have the harm that you had before. I think
So
there's
the best it gets is you might get another sterilization procedure.
Yeah, I think you might get that, but that's about it.
Okay, so let's talk about if you're defending this suit. Well, what?
Get a hysterectomy.
Well, let me ask you about defending the suit and some other potential. So, as I understand the plaintiff's suit, is you don't want this kid, right? So why don't you put it up for adoption? Then you don't have any damages.
Exactly, I do.
What?
That's exactly what you do.
Yep.
You said
No, and why are you saying no? You said you don't want him.
Yep,
Should
that's
have a
right.
hysterectomy.
Exactly.
No, but you didn't get a hysterectomy, you got a botched procedure, we're saying the doctor, by the way, right, there's really no doubt the doctor's lied. Doctor made a guarantee of something that he shouldn't have guaranteed, and so there's liability if you decide that the suit should go forward on any basis other than saying public policy, it's bad public policy to go forward, but it sounds like you guys are all past that. So I can imagine the schoolyard taunts, but you don't care about poor little Jimmy having to think about the baggage that he's carrying about mom and dad suing because they hated him that
I don't
much.
have to know that.
Well, it's not that he's,
How do you not know that? You go
No.
work versus Revo. He's going to be sitting in class someday in law school saying, "My name's Revo," you know, and then put two and two together. So, and the internet, Andy, he's going to know these days. So why, if you have an obligation to mitigate your damages, give up the baby. Or give up your baby even earlier if you want to go that way. Right? You don't have to have this child. Do you? Or now you're going to hide behind religion or personal views when you say, oh, they don't have a role
No,
here?
because I think it's hard for, okay, let's say even my wife and I decide we don't want any more kids, and then, one of us has a procedure done and we have another child. I think it's very tough, even though you didn't want the child before. And the thing is, you don't know from the beginning until the child's born if that child's going to be healthy or unhealthy. And knowing that the child is conceived, I think it's very hard to just, at that point, just give it up. I think it's not an easy decision.
Well, I don't think it would be, but what happened to the principle about mitigation of your damages? You don't, as I understand the whole lawsuit, is you do not want to pay to raise this child. We just went through a series of cases where people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to get a child to
I
raise.
think they would have talked about those circumstances before she went to the doctor to get this procedure that was botched. You would think that they would have talked about, well, if by chance, we get pregnant with another child, what are we going to do? They must have had that talk before they decided to go this route.
Well, no, this route's nice and easy now. I get to stick my hand into the doctor's pocket with a big old fat insurance policy, and
Well, I don't think they thought that.
we're going to private school.
They were hoping at the beginning that the procedure would be done correctly.
I agree with that, but it wasn't.
Right, but forcing them to make the decision to give up the baby, I think is.
I don't think it's about forcing though, I think it's about mitigating your damages, because therefore, if you do choose to give the baby up, then you are mitigating your damages, are you not?
You might even be able to make a little money in the process, right?
Well,
I know, right? I don't go that far.
yeah,
the court's not going to.
but it would be, I mean.
It would be mitigating
It would be
your
mitigating.
damages. You don't want to raise a child, you don't want to financially be responsible. Okay?
Yeah, that's,
We have a solution.
I do that.
If you're saying it's just a legal matter, then we can figure this out on a legal basis. Well, just apply the law as we normally do. You have an obligation to mitigate. We're done. What's the matter?
I like it.
There's a couple of problems. First of all, it's not that the child is unwanted now that you have them, it's that you didn't want to get pregnant to begin with. And second of all, the court's not going to come out and say that you should mitigate damages by, getting an abortion or putting your child up for adoption because of public policy considerations.
Well, I do think, well, what's the public policy there? So what, that you should want the child? Because I thought that's the dissent that we sort of dismissed because it was three Irishmen on a frolic.
It's a lie.
Huh?
That's the problem.
Huh?
It's a lie.
Yeah,
So if you're going to get into the abortion part, it's a lie. It's the first.
Well, it's a lie. Back to my point about my sainted mother and her children all being gifts from God. And you rejected my...
No, I didn't. I'm with
No, you did. You rejected that notion. Okay, so talk to me. We were twins, so we were double gifts. Talk to me about the actual damages then. So let's assume that you go forward and you don't want to mitigate. which I can understand the arguments, but let's be honest, by the way, some of you in the room will have to defend the doctor. And you're not going to defend much on liability here because you made a bad deal. You made a bad deal. And so the liability is a given if we can't survive on public policy. So now we're going to fight tooth and nail on damages, right? Because that's what we do. I'm not opening up my pocket for millions of dollars to raise your kid when you don't even want the kid.
Isn't there, with this sterilization procedure, a certain percentage just like this that are not successful?
Yeah, but that's what's astonishing about the guarantee. But that's why we can get past that. The tubes will sometimes reattach. There's no way anyone should be making a lock-since guarantee. Obviously, as the case indicates, that's a pretty foolish deal to make, right?
As for damages, though, I mean, I think you win when you give it up for adoption, but if not, who determines whether it's college, private school, public school, or paying for college?
Well, we're going to go right now. By the way, you really think you win on, because some of these people seem pretty vehemently opposed to it. You're going to make me, you screwed up, and now you're saying my remedy is to give up my blood to have some stranger raise them because you messed up?
Because you're going to say, hey, this is all about economics. I'm like, okay, if it's about economics, we got that. I am so going to win that. I am winning.
You all agree with that?
I think the court's trying to come up with a remedy that kind of balances, the doctor's liability versus the public policy considerations.
Okay, let me talk to you about the damages. So now you got this kid. So whatever the cost of the new sterilization procedure is, whatever you paid versus obviously what you didn't get, we'll give it to you next time. So that's an easy one. What else?
I want the cost of the first one.
Huh?
I want the cost of the first one.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, wait a minute though. You only get one. You want the cost of the first one, or you want the cost of the new one? You should have paid for one of them. Right. You're gonna pay. You only get one. One you should have paid for. So I'm not going to pay for two.
Well,
right?
You paid for two already. Plus,
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Why would I pay for two?
You're not. You just pay for one.
You pay for one.
Well, you're gonna
Let's just
refund.
move on to that.
If I'm going to refund, I'm not refunding. You're saying I have to refund the first one and pay for a new one?
No.
Well,
Because now you're double dipping, aren't you?
yeah,
The first
see
one
what
didn't
you're
work in
saying.
the first place, so you might as well just pay for the.
No, that's.
Okay, but do I have to refund the first one?
Cheaper than private college.
I see what you're saying.
Right, either way, I shouldn't have to pay for two. But anyway, let's get past that. I'm going to pay for at least one. You guys are making an argument that I should pay for two. I already heard someone say, and the time spent for the 9 months in being pregnant.
Medical expenses.
So, and the medical expenses attributed to the pregnancy from there. Wait a minute. So, what do you get for the 9 months? I mean, like you're saying, like an hourly wage, or
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, she can't work. So maybe what she
wait, like an hourly wage for what? 9 times 24. What? 24 hours a day, 30 days a month times 9. 24 times 30 times 9. Like an hourly wage, like minimum wage.
Minimum wage, because it doesn't look that hard.
Okay. That was Chris Basso, everyone. Not Steven. Okay, so you are going to talk about a wage for each hour you're pregnant, even the sleeping hours?
Does that get easier when you're pregnant?
You can do work.
No, it doesn't.
So
Wait,
not harder.
it's suffering argument? I don't understand what you're trying to get this from.
I'm just trying to figure out what the damages are, and I thought we were starting sort of from a baseline, not really even getting to what I think are some of the more challenging issues yet.
Okay,
Lost wages if she works.
Oh, so wait a minute, lost wages or an hourly?
Lost wages.
wages.
Oh, so there is no hourly for being pregnant for those 9 months that I should have been pregnant?
That's
How come?
That's correct.
How come? The procedure would have ensured that I would be able to live my life normally for the next 9 months and not have to worry about this. Now, I have to worry about it 24/7, 30 days a month for the next 9 months. Plus, we'll get to the childbirth part in a minute. Because I imagine some people would make an argument that that's kind of a difficult thing to do, Chris.
I didn't say anything.
So do you get paid for being pregnant? Not lost wages, paid for the purposes of being the incubator. By the way, the surrogates did.
Yeah, we just talked about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we did just talk about it. They got so much a month. So now, but now nothing? How come? What do you say?
Surrogate gets-
No, circuits, we were doing it as, like, they had a contract and they knew this was going to happen, so they prepared themselves for it. This one just happened out of the blue, so I think it's
Not exactly.
and first of all, they didn't even want this in the first place, so I think there's a big difference between surrogates and the person.
Okay, but so then, shouldn't this person get more than the surrogate?
No, that's their own kid, though.
But it's the own kid that I didn't want to have to go through this whole process.
Heck, now it's a lifestyle change. You have to go back to not drinking, not smoking, and watching what you eat. You gotta do all this.
All the
crazy stuff.
restrictions that we talked about last week, and
But that's not the physical, you're talking about the physical pregnancy itself.
I'm talking about all of the part that comes with being pregnant for 9 months. I don't get paid for that at
The
all.
clothing, the prenatal vitamins, any,
You're gonna give me all of that?
all that
So
stuff.
no hourly wage?
No hourly wage, no.
Why not?
It's not a job.
Put me back in the position I would have been, but for the wrong done to me. I wouldn't have to do this for 9 months. I would be able to sleep. I'd be able to eat, drink what I want.
Yeah.
No hourly wage.
No.
Boy, you guys are kind of picky on the damages here. Okay, so do I get a premium for having to give birth?
Yeah, I think
It looks like it could be painful at
Pain and
times.
suffering.
No, so that's that. There's no,
There is on that.
there's compensation for that?
Oh, yeah.
How much?
Whatever.
How do you value it?
Pain and suffering, whatever that
Wait a
is.
second, this is the fourth child?
Yeah, this isn't
This
the first
is
one.
not the first
Right.
one.
So nothing?
Pay for the epidural.
That's it? That's it? Because
And the work has to get a C-section, and there's, you know, some
Well, you
of
would know
that.
that if she'd already had, once you have a C-section, you
can't
know it's
get
a
it going.
C-section. So we don't know that.
Well, I know they said too that she'd suffered a miscarriage, so maybe to the point of pain and suffering, maybe I don't know, they didn't really go
The
into
mental part.
detail,
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah, she might be, afraid it might happen again, or,
So you're gonna give her an hourly wage?
But she just had a procedure for economic loss because she didn't want to have another child regardless of the
That's what
miscarriage.
she says.
Yeah.
That's what she says. That she says that because you guys told her that's what
I
she
didn't
should
tell her,
say.
Chris did.
That's what she should say. Okay, let's get past the meds and all the rest. Cost of raising this kid is expensive. Is that,
CNN says
$300,000.
it's $245,340.
honest to God, I think that's low.
It's really low.
I do.
Yeah, that's
Until they're
I went to
18,
three
not
different
until they're
sites.
how old?
How
No,
old is her?
that's 18, I think,
Birth
right?
to 18.
The birth age.
No,
But
how
it-
old is her
Oh,
oldest
hers.
child in this?
It varies, so I went to 3 different sites.
This kid is.
And they're all right around that number though, right?
My one's 520.
Yeah. I would think that's a low number when you think about it.
Yeah.
You know? Every time you turn around, there's another check going out the door.
Yeah.
But let's say it's 250.
You base it on their salary and their lifestyle as it is now?
That's my question. Is
Well, wait a minute, so do we get all that?
No, what I'm saying is if they say they make $60,000 a year, and so it costs X amount of dollars a year for the 3 children they already have, you've got to be able to figure out, and you have to measure it to keep it in that lifestyle. It can't be above and beyond what it would have been had they decided to keep the child and not bring suit. So it can't be the private school, it can't be up.
What if the other kids went to private school?
Huh?
Private camp, private school, summer camp, you name
I don't know.
it. These kids got the Cadillac. Does this kid get the Cadillac?
Why can't you just do it on the average of this?
Based
I
on
think if they-
region,
Yeah, I would think there'd be a big variation, obviously, with region as well.
Right.
income, family
Income,
income.
region, right?
So I've seen it.
So is that what we'll do? We'll match family income, well, because that's just an average still. But, so family income, region, I would think, I wonder whether, well, I bet family income may be in part related to education level too. Because I'm wondering about, so
Right, I just said education, right?
college,
That's the on
Little Jimmy's going to Harvard?
Right, let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
Is he?
But if the kids have gone to college, you expect that to.
So wait a minute, so doctor's responsible for all of the cost to raise that child,
Till he's 18, right?
just 18?
Yeah.
So it doesn't get college? Why not?
No, I would argue college.
I wouldn't argue
Why isn't college a natural consequence of the doctor's breach as well?
Right, right,
Not everybody goes to college.
Well,
I don't think those are things that are foreseeable.
he would have.
What
You
if
don't know that.
What if
We don't know that when we deal with wrongful death cases. But we're making we're going to make a case. If we can make a case,
I'd say.
then more likely than not, this would have been the path. Why shouldn't doctor pay for college too?
Yeah, I mean, if you, say you have like 2 other kids and you put those kids through college and you say, oh, in my family, all my kids go to
Why
college.
shouldn't little Jimmy go? His 2 older brothers and sister do. So college too.
You gonna buy him this?
But wait, though, I'm a little troubled how you guys are picking and choosing more, it seems to me more on a gut level than what the law says.
Well, the law doesn't say a whole lot of anything here. We don't.
Well, it does talk about, well, we know we've got negligence. It says,
Note 4. the next-
parents may recover the economic expense of rearing the child.
Right. That's very broad.
And this Wilbur versus Care on the top of 767 says, but not child rearing expenses. And then, hold on, 768. The judge law recognizes that damages would include the cost of an unsuccessful sterilization procedure and costs directly flowing from the pregnancy. The wife's lost earning capacity, some of you guys talked about, medical expenses of delivery and care following the birth, the cost of care for the other children while the wife was incapacitated, the cost of the second sterilization procedure, so he's getting both, and any expenses flowing from that operation, and husband's loss of consortium. We would add the wife's pain and suffering in connection with the pregnancy and birth and with the second sterilization procedure. We see no reason why the plaintiff should not recover for emotional distress they sustained as a result of the unwarranted pregnancy. Top of page 769. The principal issue is whether the plaintiffs are entitled if they establish liability to the cost of raising their child. Under normal tort and contract principles, that cost is both a reasonably foreseeable and natural and probable consequence of the wrongs of the plaintiffs allege. The question is there any public policy considerations that would offset that? We conclude that there is none as to parents who have elected sterilization for economic reasons. Matt says it's the cost of raising this child. So I want to know all the costs? And then it goes on, 771, first full paragraph. A substantial number of jurisdictions have allowed recovery of the cost of rearing a okay, that's my next one. Summer camp, preschool, those new sneakers, private school, hockey equipment, hockey practice, the cost of raising the child. And let's assume that, what you say, this is the 4th child, right? So let's assume we'll look at what the other 3 have been doing. And whatever style, custom of living they have, 4th will have as well. And that should include college then, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
But the problem here is that these people feel that they are too poor to raise their children. So if what they've spent on their other children is a startlingly low amount that's not enough to give these kids a decent life, then that's all we're giving to this kid that they didn't want to have in the first place? You see what I'm saying?
I actually am not sure I accept the first proposition. I don't think necessarily they're saying we're too poor. We're saying we like our life, we like our 3 kids, we like the lifestyle we have economically, we don't want to split it with a 4th. I'm not so sure they're saying we're poor, we're saying economically we just don't choose to have a 4th or another. And so that doesn't mean these first 3 aren't doing okay, but I think it means the 4th should do just as well.
But I guess really my point is, say they're not. Say it's a different family, not this one, same situation.
Okay, you want to go the other, you're
And
saying
they're-
those three shouldn't represent what this kid
If
gets.
the family is poverty-stricken and the means that they have to raise those 3 kids are not nearly enough,
So
it
doctors
doesn't seem
should
that
pay
it's-
more than the first 3 get.
to at least some reasonable standard of living.
What about that? He's saying to some, well, I'll put modest standard of living. Well, what are you shaking your head for over there?
So, okay, what we'll do is just, the doctor gets visitation rights, and every Christmas, there's 3 presents for the 3 kids, and the doctor's presents
And
are
a Ferrari.
separately, for a little child. This is crap.
What? Why? No, but why is it crap? He's just suggesting that the doctor's breach caused the birth of this child. There is no reason why this child shouldn't have what society would determine to be an acceptable style of living.
And that
should
acceptable
be-
style of living should be with the style of living that current kids.
Right.
But what if he's right? What if the current 3
If
kids?
they're not eating, yeah.
What if they only eat 1 meal a day and they don't?
Well,
they-
she's gonna get compensated for all the other stuff, so they'll be getting fined for a while.
Yeah, but wait, though, it is the doctor's breach that caused whatever flows from here. And so, it's one thing to be able to say, okay, the 3 kids will live in large. And by the way, as I understand it, we're all accepting that whatever those 3 kids' standard of living is, if it's large, 4th kid gets the same deal.
Right.
Is anyone disagreeing with that?
Well, if it's large, yeah, apparently, but if it's poor, no, we're gonna pick a different.
Okay, but wait a minute though, so even you agree that if it's large, the 4th kid gets to live large too? Okay, but Chris's point, okay, but is there some basic standard of living that we would at least think that a child should have, even if the parents couldn't afford it for the others? What about 3 squares a day? I mean, really, prisoners get that. We can't say that the law should make sure that this child gets that.
This child's a gift after all.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. So is the 3 previous kids' lifestyle is the ceiling, but not the floor. So it's the top it gets. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's the bottom if those 3 kids aren't living the way we would expect someone reasonably to be able to live. By the way, would that include, what if this child, we're assuming that the child, there's no other issues other than, what if the child has extraordinary medical expenses?
That's what I was thinking, like the medical expenses, say if it's going to be above and beyond the other 2 children,
Yep.
or if they're born with an exceptional talent, high IQ, so on and so forth, whatever, or if they become drug dependent and they require a drug, I think you have to cover all of that and say,
So where would you go with Rick's part? So now the child needs extraordinary medical expenses, the first 3 didn't. Is that recoverable? The child has extraordinary talent. They need to go to better schools than those other kids did earlier. What? No?
I think it's too, now we're getting too
Yeah,
spectacle, so we're just getting,
foreseeable.
it's not even, maybe foreseeable, but now I think it's speculation to assume or to even think that all of those additional expenses, like a gift, or something, I think that's, now we're getting to
Well, what if we could prove
what's
it?
foreseeable.
Well, first of all, certainly medical expenses, we could prove that whether the child is likely to need additional medical expenses.
But not till they're 18, you don't.
Huh?
Not till you could know that when the child's born, but you don't know to what extent they would need extra medical services.
No, but like
to
anything else, we can get testimony with respect to the likelihood. And as long as we can show more likely than not, this is what we need. We can come up with an estimate.
Like Bob said, the doctor's gonna come.
Huh? The doctor's gonna come visit?
Visitations, yeah.
Well, but you, I think, or at least you said on public policy grounds, you wouldn't permit this at all, right?
Me?
No, him.
No, him, yeah.
Right? So, teach us, I think his logic is, I told you at the outset this was illogical, because to what extent, where does this extreme end? Go ahead.
I want to keep it going. I want hourly rate for the parents' time and effort and aggravation in raising that child.
Let's get daycare with you too while we're
Let's
at
get
it.
the bill up.
Okay, so wait a minute though.
I think we should have Chris's wife in here.
Chris, do you get a stipend, a wage for raising this child? Because it isn't something I wanted to do. But for your breach, I wouldn't do it. You don't have to look at me like I'm crazy. I'm just articulating Mr. Basso.
You look at me like I'm crazy.
Look at him like he's crazy. But wait a minute, though. How many of you have kids? Wait, they're a handful sometimes, right? It's a job. And he's just suggesting, and there are nights where that job should be worth a lot more money. A lot more money. Teenage years?
We don't get paid as parents for.
No, but he's suggesting that, so that's not recoverable?
How about the damages? No. That's too much.
Should have done the procedure right.
And then I wouldn't
love the foreseeable risks.
Exactly.
Okay. What's the credit? Okay, I've heard all the negatives. I see the debit column. You did get something out of it. And I'm entitled to a credit for that. So what's my credit?
No more sleep.
Well,
No
some of
sleep.
the credits, besides the joy of having a job, which you should embrace, there is the idea of when you get older, a lot of times there's for you.
Shit, you're counting on that. You're going to be sadly mistaken. You didn't raise your hand when I asked you that, right?
Now, I'm going to win this on you have to give it up for adoption. This is all.
Wait a minute, though.
No.
That child doesn't bring any joy, any value into your life? Because maybe you should have given the kid up then.
Ka-ching. That's the only value at the moment.
What?
He's getting you all your money. Apparently, Chris is going to give him the Cadillac of services.
No, but so there's no offsetting credit?
Oh, yeah.
So there is?
There is.
What's it worth?
I don't know. You didn't even want the kid in the first place, so now like you're just gonna be like,
Burden.
Okay, but see, I have a problem with that. No, this kid's just nothing but a pain in the ass.
No,
Well,
that way.
then you shouldn't have him. You shouldn't keep him then.
I can see.
When I go back, instead I'm thinking Stephen's point is stronger, is that if there is no credit, if there is no value, then you shouldn't keep them. And so,
Well, the value.
you gotta give me a credit.
It's not monetary, it's
It's an emotional.
Yeah, emotional.
Yeah, but we do now.
Oh, you value when you're emotionally distressed, and you lawyers sue for that. But now, when you're emotionally plussed, we can't give you credit for that. How does that work? Because that seems to be a little illogical to me, is that you can value the pain, but you can't value the joy.
I don't know.
So, I don't buy that. Your dog, your puppy, your kid has value at
Isn't
the
that
end of the
the credit
day.
within itself?
What?
Isn't that like the credit within itself?
What?
The happiness and the joy and the pride.
So your son brings you happiness and joy?
Yes.
Every day?
Yes.
Pay you for it?
Exactly. You
You made
can't
a kid
enjoy all
then.
that.
Huh?
If you don't want it, then give me the baby.
No,
That's how it works.
right? They do bring you happiness. They do bring you joy. Even on the days when they are horrible,
Yeah.
there's some value.
How much would you have taken for your kid when he was 8 years old?
Well, how much?
I mean, seriously, that's the thing.
No, but most parents would answer that question. There isn't a price I would sell my child for, right?
Exactly.
So you can run up all your debits, but at the end of the day, doesn't my credit offset that? I mean, really, we don't have kids because we're expecting them to take care of us when we're old. Because it just doesn't work like that. You can't have kids if you think they're an economic gain. They aren't. They're a loss on that category. But we like having them around. So I'm due a credit here.
Yeah, but
I mean, if you guys going to travel down this road, you got to give me a credit, because that's the language on the top of 771 paragraph. A substantial number of jurisdictions have allowed recovery of the cost of rearing a normal child to adulthood, offset, however, by the benefits that the parents receive in having a normal, healthy child. So, I heard your damages, but now I'm looking for some money. and I think I'm entitled to a credit, and at least in part what I'm hearing is that we can't even put a price tag on that credit because it's that valuable.
So you pay me.
So then all of this is just right? All of this is just an exercise. Your puppy brings you joy. How can kids not? See them grow and raise to be, hopefully, normal human beings. Your parents don't take joy in you? Your parents don't take joy in your accomplishments? Get out of here. I know he does. Right? So there's a credit coming. You can figure that out for next time when we talk, when we do the other family law cases.